So earlier this morning, some news came out that former Packer Randall Cobb has now signed with the New York Jets. So now if we look at this Jets roster, part of the receiver room, a good portion now is made up of Packers players, Allen Lazard, Randall Cobb. You also throw in Nathaniel Hackett, who is there, former Packers OC. And then you have the still potential chance of the Jets potentially bringing in tight end Mercedes Lewis, who there were rumors about the Jets potentially being interested in, along with Randall Cobb, the second that Rodgers' intention of coming to New York sort of came to be. And so it's not really shocking to see lots of these veteran players who were free agents with the Packers moving on to the Jets, because I think when you look at the Packers and their roster, one of the things that Rodgers was deciding on when he was questioning whether or not he wanted to return to Green Bay was, are the Packers going to bring back some of these veteran players, or are they going to go a lot younger and let these guys like Robert Tonyan, Randall Cobb, Lazard, are the Packers going to let those guys go? Clearly, it worked out where the Packers let most of those guys go. And I think when Rodgers, and Gutekunst weren't in a communication, Gutekunst starts shopping around Aaron Rodgers. At that point, I think it sort of became clear that if the Packers were going to trade away Aaron Rodgers, they probably weren't going to bring back lots of these veterans. They were going to sort of shift to a younger team, which they have now. And so now when you look at this New York Jets offense, I think they're going to be a very good offense. But honestly, when you compare it to the offense the Packers had last year, I don't think it's that head and shoulders over the Packers roster last year. Because if you look at the receiver room for the Jets, they have Garrett Wilson, legit receiver, really good as a rookie. He was definitely better than Christian Watson was in year one. He didn't have as many injuries, and he sort of picked things up more quickly. But then you look at Lazard there as well, McCole Hardman, Corey Davis. They may have a little more depth than the Packers had last year. But overall, I don't think this Jets offense is that much better than the Packers offense was last season, because the Packers had some elite running backs. The Jets also have Breece Hall, who played really well in his time as a rookie before he got injured. And I would even argue that the Packers have and had a better offensive line last year than the New York Jets did. And so I think that if you're Rodgers, obviously you bring some of these guys in, if you're the Jets, to sort of give Rodgers some sort of comfortability, bring some of his friends in, some guys he already has that chemistry with. So Rodgers no longer has to build chemistry with, every new receiver on the roster. He has two guys who could, get a good chunk of playing time, especially Lazard, and then also Randall Cobb. You have two guys who he sort of already has that chemistry with and he can really rely on right out the gate. Because we saw with Rodgers last season, it took him some time to build that chemistry with, Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs. And there's no doubt that when you get new receivers in a room, it's going to take some time to sort of get things clicking, and especially more so when they're rookies who don't really know exactly what's going on all the time. And so it's a smart move by the Jets to bring in Randall Cobb. And I think when you look at Randall Cobb, he hasn't been the player he once was early in his career. He's still been productive. But if you look at his past few seasons, if we look at 2021 for Cobb after being traded from Houston, 375 yards, 5 touchdowns, and then 2022 he had 34 receptions, 417 yards, and 1 touchdown. So he's been somewhat productive, but not really your number 1 or 2 wide receiver. And I think it really comes down to, can he stay healthy this next season? Because as I said, the past couple of years, he has dealt with a good amount of injuries. You look back as well to Houston and Dallas, he also struggled with injuries at times over there as well. And so I think that if you are the Jets, you mainly bring Cobb in because it does give Rodgers another security blanket alongside Allen Lazard. So when the season starts and when Rodgers maybe needs some guys to come through in big situations, he can have players who he sort of already has that built-in chemistry, that built-in relationship with. And so for the Packers, obviously we are really shifting to a much younger team overall on offense and on defense. And Brian Gutekunst, by trading away Rodgers, sort of signaled an end to lots of things that had been going on for years and years with the Packers, deciding to let Robert Tonyan go, sign with the Bears. Lets Lazard go, obviously signs with the Jets. Lets Randall Cobb go. Haven't brought back Mercedes Lewis, who maybe he'll sign with the Jets. Potentially, we'll see. The Packers have shifted to a much younger team around Jordan Love, and I think if there's any time to sort of shift that, when you're moving to a new young quarterback, might as well bring in a new talent of offense, some young talented players who can develop with Love over the next few seasons. You get tons of that money off your books because the Packers have, a massive dead cap hit for Rodgers in 2023 at $40 million. So it was going to be tough for them to bring back both Tonyan, Lazard, and Cobb if they wanted to bring back lots of those veterans. It would have been tough with that dead cap hit of Rodgers. So now if you're the Packers, you have tons of young weapons now. After drafting 3 receivers in the draft this season, 2 tight ends, drafting 3 receivers in last year's draft. There's lots of young talent here, which I think it can be a good thing, and maybe, it means that we could take some time to see that development happen with those players because, if you're a rookie here and you come in and you're playing with another guy who's in his first season, you'd expect some kind of growing pain and some kind of, time it could take for those guys to really get on the same page. So we have two teams in very different positions. The Jets, sort of signing all these veteran players, trying to make that push for a Super Bowl. The Packers, on the other hand, moving to a young team with Jordan Love, giving him young weapons. And I think that after 2023, when the Packers have a lot more salary cap space, maybe we see them make some kind of bigger veteran moves for potentially a little bit older guys who are already a little bit more solidified in their careers. But that is all I wanted to cover today. Pretty interesting news. If you guys want to stay up to date with all Packers news, feel free to subscribe down below. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.